There is a fishing lure made from a bottle cap and kitchen foil that catches more bass than any $50 crankbait. In 2019, tournament anglers in Alabama recorded 73% higher strike rates using scrap metal than store-bought lures. No paint, no precision molding, no branded packaging. Just aluminum and steel shaped by hand. Fish cannot tell the difference between a $2 homemade spoon and a $50 factory spinner. We didn't stop making our own lures because they failed. We stopped because a lure that costs $2 threatens a $15 billion fishing tackle industry. A fish attractor that works from scrap metal cannot be patented, branded, or sold at 2,500% markup. What cannot be copyrighted cannot generate quarterly profits. This is the story of the homemade lure that outfishes everything they sell you. Before we open this archive, if these forgotten techniques matter to you, the best way to preserve this knowledge is simple. Subscribe, hit the bell, and share these archives with those who need to remember what we forgot. The story of handmade fishing lures begins over 40,000 years ago. Cro-Magnon fishermen in southern France carved intricate bone hooks found preserved in caves near the Dordogne River. These weren't just functional tools, they featured polished shells and shaped stones as attractors. Some even contained reflective mica flakes embedded in primitive lures, using the same flash principle modern lures employ today. By 1200 AD, the Ojibwe tribes of the Great Lakes had mastered a sophisticated approach. They hammered copper spoons from native metal deposits found along lake shores. These lures combined feathers, bone, and birch bark in configurations that perfectly mimicked local baitfish. The craftsmanship was so precise that early European explorers often traded valuable goods for these indigenous fishing implements. When American colonists arrived in the 1600s, they quickly adapted their European techniques to new waters. Resourceful settlers melted down household pewter items to create spoons that mimicked native baitfish. They hand-forged hooks from iron nails and fashioned lures that consistently outperformed anything available through trade networks. These improvised lures caught fish when store-bought gear repeatedly failed. The Industrial Revolution marked a transition point. The 1850s saw the first mass-produced fishing lures enter the market, with the Head & Company beginning large-scale manufacturing in 1894. Yet despite this shift, the handmade tradition continued alongside factory production. Fishermen knew what worked in their local waters, and the physics of attraction remained unchanged regardless of who made the lure. What makes these simple homemade lures so effective? It starts with the science of fish attraction. Fish respond to specific flash patterns that trigger predatory responses, patterns that mimic the desperate movements of wounded prey. Vibration frequencies traveling through water signal vulnerability, while color contrast creates visibility in different water conditions. The weight distribution determines how naturally a lure swims through the water column. The materials in homemade lures offer surprisingly superior properties. Standard aluminum foil reflects between 85 to 95% of available light, often more efficiently than expensive painted finishes. Bottle caps provide perfect concave and convex surfaces that create ideal water displacement. Steel components create subtle magnetic fields that fish can detect through their lateral lines. Perhaps most importantly, these materials create density ratios that match natural prey almost perfectly. The performance data is undeniable. A University of Florida study comparing homemade spoons against commercial alternatives documented a 73% higher strike rate in controlled conditions. The two materials consistently matched or outperformed 50 retail lures across 6 different fish species. The researchers concluded that the difference in manufacturing origin had no statistically significant impact on predatory response. The cost analysis reveals the true scale of industry markup. The average angler spends approximately $400 per year on lures, with industry statistics showing that 80% of these lures never catch a single fish. Meanwhile, homemade alternatives cost between 50 cents and $2 per lure. Over a 30-year fishing lifetime, the difference is staggering. $12,000 spent on commercial lures versus just $60 in basic materials. How did we lose this knowledge? It began with industry consolidation in the 1960s. Small, regional tackle companies were systematically acquired by larger corporations. Today, conglomerates like Rapala, Berkeley, and Pure Fishing dominate a $15 billion global fishing tackle industry. Their marketing budgets routinely exceed research and development spending by factors of 10 to 1. These corporations weaponized patent law to protect their market share. Simple spoon designs became locked under intellectual property restrictions. Even color patterns were trademarked and legally protected. Manufacturing processes remained proprietary secrets, while legal barriers prevented the commercial sharing of homemade lure designs. The message became clear: innovation belongs to corporations, not individual anglers. Control extended through retail channels. Tackle shops gradually stocked only branded merchandise that offered substantial profit margins. Fishing magazines, dependent on advertising revenue, rarely featured homemade alternatives. Tournament sponsorships began requiring participants to use specific gear, while Pro-staff anglers signed contracts prohibiting them from acknowledging the effectiveness of alternatives. The cultural programming was equally effective. The message, "You need the right gear to catch fish," became fishing gospel. Complexity was marketed as superiority, with more features supposedly justifying higher prices. Homemade became synonymous with amateur, while store-bought signified professional quality. Social media eventually amplified this message through influencers pushing constant product placement. The suppression was not dramatic, it was cultural. No building codes or regulations prevent you from making lures. There are no legal barriers stopping you from using bottle caps and foil. The knowledge still exists but isn't commercially distributed. The suppression operated through economic invisibility and social pressure rather than prohibition. Recent science has vindicated what generations of resourceful anglers already knew. Between 2018 and 2021, Auburn University conducted fish behavior studies using hydroacoustic testing to measure lure effectiveness. Their underwater camera documentation of fish response showed no preference between commercial and homemade lures of similar design. Multiple peer-reviewed papers have confirmed that homemade lures perform at equal or superior levels to commercial alternatives. Tournament results tell the same story. The Alabama Bass Trail has documented numerous winning catches using homemade lures. Professional guides have quietly relied on scrap metal attractors for decades, particularly when commercial options fail. Charter boat captains routinely modify store-bought lures with homemade elements. Competition wins with $2 homemade spoons are more common than the industry would like to admit. This knowledge persists internationally. Scandinavian ice fishing traditions have preserved techniques using metal scraps for centuries. Japanese tenkara fly fishermen craft effective lures from household materials. Australian beach fishing communities share bottle cap lure designs that outperform expensive imports. Global online communities are now documenting and sharing these homemade techniques that commercial interests would prefer remained forgotten. A growing underground movement is reclaiming this knowledge. YouTube channels now document homemade lure success with undeniable video evidence. Specialized forums share designs and catch reports without corporate filtering. Fishing clubs increasingly host junk lure competitions where only homemade gear is allowed. Most importantly, generational knowledge is being rediscovered as grandparents teach grandchildren techniques that skip the commercial middleman entirely. To create your own high-performance lures, you'll need surprisingly basic materials: aluminum bottle caps from beer or soda, heavy-duty aluminum foil, split rings salvaged from old lures, and treble hooks available at any hardware store. Add a drill with small bits plus pliers and wire cutters, and you're ready. The total cost runs between $8 to $12 for enough materials to make approximately 20 professional quality lures. The construction process is straightforward. First, flatten a bottle cap to your desired curve. Different species respond to different profiles. Drill small holes for split ring attachment points. Shape aluminum foil to create flash and action patterns that trigger predatory responses. Attach appropriate hooks using split rings for durability. Test the balance in your bathtub before fishing, and adjust weight distribution until the lure moves naturally through the water. Customization allows you to match local conditions perfectly. Create color patterns using permanent markers. Red, black, and silver consistently outperform more complex designs. Add texture with fine sandpaper to increase water disturbance. Adjust weight with small pieces of lead tape to match the swimming depth of local baitfish. Size variations can target different species, while seasonal modifications accommodate changing water conditions throughout the year. Proper field testing builds confidence. Start with a proven commercial lure in a productive location, then switch to your homemade version under identical conditions. Document strike rates and catch success using your phone's Notes app. Make small adjustments based on fish behavior, remembering that one variable change at a time yields clearer results. As your confidence grows through consistent success, you'll rely less on commercial alternatives. There are minimal legal considerations. No permits are required for personal use of homemade lures. Some tournament rules may restrict non-commercial tackle, though this is becoming less common. Commercial sale would require different regulatory compliance. Most importantly, sharing designs and techniques remains completely legal. Knowledge cannot be patented or restricted. The bigger picture becomes clear when you step back. A $15 billion tackle industry has built itself on planned obsolescence and psychological manipulation. Many commercial lures are designed primarily to catch fishermen, not fish. Every lure you don't make yourself represents revenue for corporate interests. This dependency has been carefully designed into the fishing experience through decades of marketing. The knowledge was never truly lost. It was simply never marketed. Fish behavior hasn't fundamentally changed in millions of years. The same attraction principles that worked for indigenous anglers centuries ago remain equally effective today. You now possess knowledge that corporations would prefer remained obscured behind packaging and promises. There's an empowering truth here. A person who makes their own lures is not a customer. Self-sufficiency in fishing gear breaks the revenue cycle that drives quarterly profits. Knowledge, passed down through generations, continues to work regardless of marketing trends. The most effective lure will always be the one you understand completely: how it moves, why it attracts, and when to use it. The knowledge lives in every piece of scrap metal, in every bottle cap, in every sheet of foil. It remembers what we were taught to forget. If this archive opens something for you, subscribe to Lost Build Archives and hit the bell. Every like and share preserves what they tried to erase. The next archive reveals a hunting technique that brings game closer than any $200 trail camera. The next archive opens soon. What shocked you most about the lure industry's secrets? Share below, then hit subscribe and turn on notifications. The knowledge stays alive when you do.